Alright, welcome back to Anime Savants, everyone. This week, I am Shiro.
This week, I am Thorfinn.
Okay. Oh, Thorfinn, Vinland Saga. Oh, boy. Alright, and so we have watched way more than what we watched last week. So we're gonna hit this shit, and we're just gonna boom, 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 knock them out. Because we didn't even talk about much last week, and it was long. So... Mononogatari.
Okay.
What'd you think of it? I mean, you've watched the first 2 episodes. I watched the first episode.
So I went into it not necessarily knowing what to expect. I liked the preview. It looked like it was going to be an action series. There was a promise of sort of like, you know, a variety of interesting weird powers. And other than that, didn't really pay much attention to the story. So in the first 2 episodes, we kind of got introduced to the structure of sort of what the show is going to be going forward, and it seems like it's a mix of not quite monster of the week, more relationship building around a central mystery. So the main character is a type of exorcist. There apparently are many different types in this world. His whole family does this sort of thing. Basically, when spirits come over from the other side, they will incarnate into physical objects, and then sometimes they go crazy, sometimes they just try to hide and live in the regular world. Either way, it causes problems. So him and his family are in charge of an area where they go and either capture, destroy, or exorcise, you know, these spirits. His siblings were killed by a spirit that we learn a little bit more about. Yeah, pretty gross. That's actually the first scene, is that you just watch his siblings die. And so our MC has got prejudice against spirits, and
he fucks them up whenever he gets inside of them.
He gives them the hands. And so that setup, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, because in the first episode, you start with this pretty gruesome and emotional scene, or supposed to be emotional, of watching his siblings die. And then in the next couple of scenes where we fast forward to the present day, where he's working with his grandfather, it's sort of played for a little bit of comedy. And so that balance in like the first 10 minutes doesn't really give you a good feeling of like, okay, where are we going with this? Because we've got a main character who hates spirits and kind of deals with them very aggressively. And then we're set up with the central conflict of the series, which is that his grandfather wants him to take over, but you can exorcise spirits without violence, and his first move is to always be violent. So he sends him to go board with a group of spirits who work on behalf of the human side. So these are spirits who exorcise or capture other spirits, and they are all sort of serving this one college-age girl, which I'll get back to because I like that feature that most of the characters here are adults, or they at least are older than high school. But he doesn't believe this, and he has a lot of prejudice just against spirits in general. And so when he shows up, the first thing he does is obviously get into a fight, and then that sort of ends. You get like some shonen stuff, and then it kind of ends with a little bit of comedy, and then a little bit of like, you know, where things go from here. So if you just watch the first episode, you'd probably think that the main appeal of this show was still going to be like, let's go
Monster of the Week.
Yeah, let's go Monster of the Week, or like there's like a power. We'll see like, oh, what does it mean to like reincarnate in a motorcycle, or with a fan or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's interesting enough, but really, if you watch episode 2, which all revolves around 2 separate jobs that the group of spirits who are doing these exorcisms have to do, you realize that the actual structure of the show is really more about like found family and getting along, and also challenging everybody's assumptions about what the right course of action is to deal with spirits who want to come into the real world. So without going any further than that, I will just say that I enjoyed it more having watched the first 2 episodes than I would have if I had just watched episode 1 alone. Okay. And I also kind of like the visual aesthetic. It's very muted. You know, the color palettes are on the cooler end, and there's kind of a filter over the backgrounds, which I was worried about because sometimes that's like trying to save money rather than doing something that's aesthetically pleasing. But in the second episode, as they get out into the regular world, you realize that like it allows the animators to put a little bit more into the you know, animation of the characters that come out of the screen with you. So who's in the foreground. And so that both works out pretty well for the action scenes where they show up. It also works out pretty well for like facial details and laughing and everything else. And by the end of the second episode, I was like, I kind of just want to get to know the rest of the cast because there's clearly a lot more depth going into it, especially after the second mission, which is like supposed to be a non-violent one, but you find out that like the spirits have a terrible reputation among other spirits because they're basically traitors. Yeah. And so like everything is going good with them like peacefully getting a spirit to like come along and like actually be integrated into human society. Like they have like a structure for doing it, and then that spirit casually hears the name of the family, it's like Naka something or other, and flips out and actually like you think one shot kills one of the protagonist group.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, they figure out a way to not destroy or exercise that spirit, and it's like the conversation that's had in the beginning, middle, and end of that was really interesting. It was just actually a philosophical kind of, not really a debate, but like, you know, each group is trying to show like, hey, I deal with problems this way. Oh no, I deal with problems this way. I deal with problems that way. So I could see like as we go through the first 6 episodes, I assume we'll get that perspective from all the different members of the household as he tries to win them over, you know, because he wants to stay and he knows that if he gets thrown out, then his grandfather will basically kick him out of the family. Yeah, and they take that seriously, like that. You know, first of all, what did you feel about the first episode?
All I cared about was seeing the woman with the scythe from the opening, because like that's my favorite weapon. So they didn't show up, but
it's probably episode 3.
Yeah. So like. other than that, though, like I enjoyed it, and I saw that I thought that it had potential, but I definitely was thinking it was gonna go the monster of the week route, and I wasn't sure were there romance vibes like sprouting between them?
They are not leading with that. I could see it happening. Okay. But if there is, it's fine. But if they don't, or if they make it a lot slower, I'd probably appreciate it more, because again, this is not like high school first crush kind of thing. These are like slightly older characters. I think what did you think of like Hiyoma, the main character, his representation in the first episode? Because I can tell you a lot about what happens in episode 2 that made me actually really appreciate his character more. But what did you think about in episode 1?
I just thought that in episode 1 they made things make sense, as far as the opening scene being, you know, brother and sister killed by an Ayakashi in front of his face, and then we get a time skip and the grandfather's peacefully exercising while he's like mauling niggas. So it's like, but okay, I get it. There's a reason. And now we also have a reason of you being in this new household and you having automatic tension with the people in the household because they are the things that you hate, because you have not processed your trauma with your brother and sister yet. So great starting point, I thought. But that was kind of it. Like the fight scene, I didn't really think much was going to happen with that in the first place. So I did want to see the powers. And they also manifested the thing saying, oh, they manifest specific items. So when he pulled out the katana, I'm thinking, oh, okay, not infested, he you know, inhabited a katana, and that's why he's using the katana to fight, etc., etc. But then also the main character's powers seem pretty simple, but I feel like they're not that simple. So that was another thing that I was looking forward to going forward. It's just that there's so much shit I was like, second episode, I'll get to you when I get to you.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, what I appreciated most wound up not really being any of the shonen components of the show, which is necessarily like the action and
which that was what it was. A lot of the first episode was about.
Yeah, so it was like what I really appreciate actually is that it's what I would just generally call characterization. Every primary and supporting character that we've gotten, or at least that I've seen in the first 2 episodes, I got more than like a couple of lines already established, at least 2 layers of characterization. So like Hyoma has his childhood trauma, which then leads to his aggressive behavior towards spirits. But in the second episode, we get a longer look at he is a very dutiful kind of person. It's not just that like, oh, he's a rage monster and he wants to like beat the shit out of every spirit that he comes across. It's that he just has incredibly horrible trust issues when it comes to spirits, and he's prejudiced, and he gets called out on his prejudice at multiple occasions. But because he's also a dutiful character, if he takes on a charge, he goes at that, whatever he's been asked to do, earnestly and as hard as he can, even if it goes against what he's feeling inside. So specifically, he's prejudiced and doesn't like spirits, but he also wants to do a good job and wants to succeed at the task that his grandfather gave him, which means that all the time in the second episode, when he gets called out for bad behavior or his whatever preconceived notions that he's got about spirits in the world or their relationship with Botan or like what that family group is really all about, he will explicitly say, I will do my best to work through this. Okay. And that's something that, it's not a what's the name of the main character of Full Metal Panic? Is it Setsuna?
I have no idea.
Well, that so the idea, like, what in that show or that light novel, you've got this like high school age person, but their character is basically like like super hardened military
and he's
spy.
Protecting the girl or some shit, right?
Right. So he's a very dutiful character, and the comedy of Full Metal Panic a lot of the times is he's put in a position to have to behave like a regular high school student, but he's not. He's like very blunt, very direct, solves things with violence. And then it's the struggle of getting him to become more like a regular kid or have more emotions. That's like the core of that journey inside of that show. Like, you might like robots and shit or the fantasy or like cute girls, but like that's what the story is trying to do. In Mononogatari, it's somewhat similar, but they go right off the bat as saying like the goal even of all the other characters in this series, essentially, is just to get him to drop his prejudices and see things from a different point of view. And so that's what I actually like about the series. It's not the violence is fine, and there was some really cool concepts and ideas, and I definitely want to see, like, powers that are inspired by real-world objects. Like, how creative can it get? But I'm going to watch more episodes because I actually like the journey that the main character and the supporting cast are on. Now I just want to see more from like Botan. Now I want to see more from Nagi. Now I want to see more from some of the others. Like, I think is it Suzuri who's the one with the side? I don't know. I want to know about this the one that, the mystery about who killed his siblings and how that's going to factor into the story. So I like all of those things, but that's not what's going to get me to watch episode 3. It's the internal relationships.
Okay. What do you think of Strongest Exorcist?
Okay, so this one, I'll just tell you what my verdict is up front, which is like I might watch like one more episode of it because it's not offensively over the top trash, like, nor is it really
Shikai.
Yeah, nor is there like a lot to recommend it outside of like some
It looks like, really basic.
Yeah, but there's some decently competent writing for the main cast. Like, all the supporting characters are literally one note. But like the main, so what's the concept? Concept here: main character was in another world. It seemed like the world that person grew up in was like heavily based on like onmyoji, like spirit summoning, like ancient Japan. But it's not clearly Earth because there are spirits that he's able to, like, he's a spirit summoner in the other world. Yeah, and he's like at the pinnacle of that, and then he gets betrayed and he dies. They established very early that like his passion when he was in the other world was teaching his students. He had like, he had some sect or a cult or what, I don't know what you want to call it, but like, that's what he really, that was his passion, was like, raising up stronger students and whatever. And his connection with yokai and everything else is sort of incidental to that. So then he gets reborn as a baby, and it's literally just a straight ripoff of Mushoku Tensei. Now that I've watched it, I get
has full like faculties.
Yeah, exactly, and then they play with some of the other common tropes of like, oh well, he comes from another world, or soul or spirit comes from another world, so he doesn't actually have magic. Like everyone in this world has magic, or all the people who are powerful, he doesn't. But he gets around it. He can simulate it with his Onmyoji spirit summoner, abilities, but he has to do it a different way. And so the end result is he's like a third or fourth kid, like the kid of the concubine. So it's like, all right, you're gonna get treated like shit by your stupid brothers, and all the supporting characters, like I said, are one note. So there's one brother who's just an asshole and a coward, and that's all he is. There's another brother that's like he's clearly the second kid, so he defers to the older brother, but definitely a softie, definitely a nice person, doesn't want to treat the main character terribly, but kind of goes along with it. The father is like very much
doesn't give a fuck about any of them.
Well, no, the father cares about his kids, but in this world, if you can't do magic, you're just fucked. So he's like, I'm not going to spend money on you and get your hopes up to get like a tutor. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter because the main character has his full faculties from the other world, and he's very quickly regaining all of his other spirit related abilities. But he's kind of hiding out because he's like, you know what? If I stand out too much, people are going to ask questions about why my abilities are so different from everybody else's. Yeah. So I'm going to just lay low. And then by the end of the first episode, he is identified that there's like one servant who's like has huge boobs and super nice to him since he was a kid. But like she can actually interact with spirits as well. But instead of him becoming like a lech or her being presented as like a legit harem member, his first thought and the consistent thought is, I always wanted to teach somebody who had skills that were possibly as good or better than mine. So I'm gonna take on a teacher role with this girl and then maybe get her out of this situation organically.
Wow, that's a little bit refreshing.
That's what I'm saying. So there's some decently competent writing and some choices that they didn't really have to do because it does look for all the world like your typical piece of trash. And then I looked at the studio, which is Studio Blanc, and I would not have expected that they would get this series because the only other thing that they've done was a show that I just remember by name, which is My Girlfriend is a Show Bitch. I don't know if you remember what that one was.
Do not remember that.
It's a it was a show. I don't remember what year it came out, but when it was when the first episode showed up, it was memorable for basically two things. Number one, in that first episode, you got a situation that featured simulated cum play, and the transition scenes between the scenes was literally the main girl flashing her panties at the screen, and then it like fade wiping with the panty flash. So that's what it was known for, was like this pretty trashy, ecchi series that was all edge from like minute one. Like the main character's sister is like constantly coming on to him, but like they play it off like she's trying to get him ready for his actual girlfriend. You have like the Ice Queen who's like trying to figure out what men really want, and so therefore she says things that are incredibly X-rated, but like doesn't get like, it's not a series I would recommend to anyone for any reason, because it's like neither is it good porn nor is it good writing or anything else. But that's what exists, but that's literally all they've really done that's of any memory. And then they got this one.
They did Uramichi on Nissan, so that one that's funny though. That's not like harem-esque. No. So all things considered, I might watch one more episode, but it's not like going to be high on my list. But I don't think it's, at least so far, it's not explicitly trying to be garbage, nor is it completely insulting. Like there's actually, if you're into against the grain kind of reincarnation plots, like it's actually fine. Like I didn't see anything in there where I'm like, oh, people who like this shit wouldn't like this. It sounds like very like down the lane of like, if you like isekai, tune in.
Right. So. Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What did you think of Ningen Fushin?
I actually like it a lot. I don't know about you.
I liked it. So this is another one. The second episode is out. Actually, third episode is out by the time this one comes out. But I watched the first episode, and when they got to the priest, the priest, I knew it because the tone that they had set with the mage, I was just already in a, okay, this isn't going to be like full on comedy. It's like fucked up shit's going to happen to them. They got to that priest. I saw the little girl. I'm thinking, oh man, she's sitting on the lap. This is going to end very badly.
I was so worried. Oh man.
And the craziest thing to me is after the nigga got out of jail, she's in the alleyway crying. I was like, oh wow, that's what we're doing? So for me, I enjoyed the first episode because it kind of gave us like, you know, a background to almost everyone. Not the lizard, dragon, Drogon girl or whatever they call her. But wow, do I want to see some revenge?
Yeah.
I want to see some revenge. Like, before saving the world.
And I want them to rise up, I think, definitely, because everybody got screwed in some way. There were so many interesting things about the sort of setup for at least episode 1, because I wasn't sure. Well, okay, I'll take that back. I was pretty sure that we were going to get a lot of comedy, but I wasn't sure at whose expense that comedy was supposed to really come at. Like, was it going to be at the expense of like the characters that we're getting to know in a what's sort of an archetype for that? Like, just like, are they making fun of the genre through the characters, or is it just something that has some comedic elements to it, but really it is that main story about something else? So you see pretty quickly by the end of episode 1 that like the purpose of this story, why you would show up to watch it week to week, is about a bunch of people who don't really trust each other kind of learning to be friends, learning to work together, learning to basically be better people in spite of the bad shit that happened to them. And then in the process of that, there will be some serious shit happening. There will also be things that are like not so serious and fun or funny. And I like that a lot better than maybe where I thought it might be going. And the fact that all of them in some ways are either losers or degenerates, but not in a like this person would be thrown in prison kind of way, but in a sort of like you can chuckle at their loser behavior, but it doesn't hurt like the
gambling part, that, and then the lasciviousness with the priest.
Yes,
but they're all coping mechanisms in a way.
Exactly. So like Nick's thing, that's why I wasn't sure, because you watch like the first 5 to 10 minutes and you sort of see like Nick get dumped by his girlfriend. Okay, that whole scene, the way they put together was like it was a joke. Yeah, like it was a, you know, he's a loser, and then it's ha ha ha. And literally in the scene, they're all laughing at what a loser he is. But then the whole thing about embezzling money and how he was treated by his sort of father figure in the process of that sucked. You know, like that
and I feel like there's something up with them. Like with his father figure and with like the head of the academy for the mage girl, they both were doing the same. They were both like looking out the window while all the shit was going on. So that automatically caught my eye to make me think, oh, are they all linked, or was there prophecy or some shit and they all have to go through this or something like that? But it didn't happen with the priest. So
no, I think it's just they're all screwed over by people who at their heart are either just shitty humans themselves, dealing with like massive insecurities that they're projecting onto other people, or are predatory in some minor or major way. Like that, these are just the bad aspects of humans. They're not, I don't think that there's, right now anyway, because I've only watched obviously the first 2 episodes, but I don't think the point is to link them in that way. I think the real point is just to show that anybody would have trust issues after what happened there. And then that they doubled down on that in the second episode, because you know, and one thing I like is that Nick is not a shitty adventurer. He's actually pretty good. He just kind of
I think like one of the lines, the guild master was saying that like this, you're not good at this, like you're not cut out for this.
Yes.
Which made me think that he knows that he's good at something else. He's just not deliberately telling him. He wants him to figure it out.
Did you watch the second episode? I forget.
No, I haven't watched the second episode yet.
So the second episode kind of doubles down on the same concept where they form their party, and all the entire episode is really more of a tutorial for the audience that's delivered in canon by Nick to the rest of the party, because they go on a dungeon raid, like the lowest level one. And all through it, we are being educated about like what it means to be in a dungeon and what are the things that matter. And you quickly figure out that like Nick is really, really good at being a teacher, because he, his role was to be like a scout and to, know a lot about the areas and know how to like arrange a party so that everybody is safe and protected. And the key is the relationship in the episode between Kuran and Tiana, with like, in some ways, Zem, who is a priest, gets his own lesson, but it's sort of at the end. But the idea is that even though they're in this dungeon where seemingly things are relatively safe, everybody has to play their role correctly. And because they all have trust issues, each person fucks it up in some way that at first is minor, and then they have a lesson at the end where shit goes really bad, where it's like, here's that shit I was telling you if you fuck this up. So Tiana almost hits Curran with the fireball in the back. Curran clearly has some big time trust issues, because she says multiple times in the episode, like, I was trying to trust you, now I can't trust you anymore. Zem, whose role is to be at the back, he says all the time, I can't fight, I can't fight, I can't fight. And Nick is telling him, like, that's fine. You just need to do the things you're good at. Don't try to do things that you're not. And also don't pretend like you can't do something that you can, because that will get everybody killed. And so sort of at the end, there's a unexpected fight, and then they have to, they basically come together. And so because most of the episodes focus on Tiana and Curran, there was movement in their personal relationship as a result of things that had happened earlier. But then they all kind of turn on Nick, and they're like, bro, you keep underrating yourself. Why the fuck do you keep doing that? Like, we would have died if you hadn't gotten your, you told us what to do and organize everything. And sort of the thing that they're getting at, which I'm sure is going to be a theme over the course of the season, is that the way his trauma plays out is that he thinks that he's a failure and that he's worthless.
So he just constantly belittles himself.
Yeah, or like sets himself back in ways that right now he's the most experienced person, because all the other one, well, I guess Curran was also in a party, but he's definitely the one with the most like team leadership ability. But so far, he's the person who kind of holds it all together. But if he were not to be able to do that, everybody would die.
Falls apart. Okay.
Yeah, so at some point that has to be the destination for him, is to step up and be a leader, because he wasn't, remember, he was just a scout before. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's a bunch of degenerate fantasy tropes partying up, getting their confidence back. And then, it's kind of cute. There's some, like, legit laughs. Some character designs are actually not generic. Tiana's a really cool character, I think, overall. I wish they'd get more into, like, her degeneracy, because it's actually funny to me. But, yeah. Oh, yeah, and also Agate, or whatever her name is, the idol. I'm trying to figure out where does that play in, because that was funny. That was a big joke in episode 1. Was, like, Nick's like, what am I going to do now? And they smash cut to him, like, screaming about this idol.
Fucking idol otaku. God damn. Yeah. But everyone has their, not flaw, their little quirk. So beyond that, what else is there? Oh, so I watched Campfire Cooking, the first 2 episodes of that.
Tell me all about it.
Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill. Another isekai. So honestly, this show is just so straightforward that I can't help but love it. He gets there and he immediately just says, I'm not supposed to be here. I can tell you right now, like, these kids are in high school. I'm like a middle-aged salaryman. I can tell you right now, I don't have no powers. Like let's be real about this. And so they do the scans of everyone. And so the guy is like, oh, he's a holy sword wielder and she can wield holy magic. And they get to him and they're just like, portable grocery. Okay. And he's like, I told you. The fuck is that? Yeah, but he's like, I told you. Like, I told you straight up, like, I should not be here. So they meet with the king and queen. He immediately gets the vibe of thinking, I don't want nothing to do with this shit. The other heroes are already looking down on him. And it's just it was almost giving Shield Hero vibes for a moment. And he immediately just cuts the shit short. And he's all like, I'm leaving. Like, can you please just, you know, give me a little money to survive and I'll make the rest of the way myself. And that's it. He's gone. And so
he got the fuck out of there.
He got the fuck out. And so then he goes to the Adventurers Guild. He decides that he wants to go to another country because he doesn't want to have anything to do with the country that summoned him. And he meets this group of adventurers. They break down, you know, the gold cost, like how much is a gold coin, things like that. And then he does a little bit of experimentation and it's a skill system. So he ends up learning that he has appraisal, which is like one of the skills that only heroes can get, but not all heroes get it. So his automatic line of thinking for everything is, I'm not telling nobody. I'm not telling you about my grocery. He has an item box, which apparently it's a regular thing in that world to have like an item box, but they're of limited sizes. His is unlimited. But he's always lying to people saying, oh, I only have so much room in here. I'm going to try to fit it in, blah, blah, blah. And then he turns around. He's like, bitch, I can fit this shit here. Like, ain't no fucking shit. So then we get to the adventuring part and the cooking part. And this is where it actually gets really interesting. And it gives me the same kind of vibe like Sid and Mob Sakai, where he buys a Bunsen burner and he's all, oh, you know, this is an invention from a faraway place or whatever. And what he's able to do is through the portable grocery thing, it automatically changes the currency to the currency of that world. So it'll be like, oh, to get like a ginger sauce, it's five copper. Or, you know, for the Bunsen burner, it was like 60 silver or some shit like that. So it like spoon feeds you things, but it starts off very chill. You know, he makes sandwiches and soup for the party that's escorting him. And they're all like, oh, this is the best shit ever. Like, what did you make this with? Oh my God, da 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 da. They keep going on. They end up finding monsters. There's this big boar. They kill it. And then they go into like things that are very practical with food, where they're all saying, oh, we won't even be able to eat all of this, like on this trip alone. Like, how are we going to like use this, or it sucks, it's gonna waste. And he's all saying, oh, well, you know, I have my item box and, you know, I think I have room for it in my item box. So what he does is he's cooking these niggas like meal. They've never had fried pork chops, all this kind of shit like that. He cooking it up and he's having a good time doing it. And he's like, you know what? I wouldn't mind, like, you know, doing this, making this kind of like my thing. I think I want to do like the merchant kind of thing, you know, just have like a traveling like merchant stand of me just cooking. Shit gets thrown out the fucking window because Fenrir, the legendary wolf, has been following them the entirety of the first episode because he's watching this nigga cook all this shit and he's smelling it and he's like, I want some of that. I'm gonna get some of that. So he comes up out of nowhere, scares the shit out of the adventurers. They leave him alone and Fenrir is like, what you just cooked for them, cook that shit for me. And he's like, all right, good, now cook it again. All right, that was delicious, now cook it again. Good, now cook it again. Now cook it again. Now cook it again. So by the like end of it, he's eating almost like the whole boar meat that they had stored away. And Fenrir basically agrees to say, you know what? I'll become your familiar. And the guy's like, I don't want you to be my familiar. He's like, bitch, what did you say? And so the adventurers are afraid because they're like, this is a legendary wolf. He's going to kill us. He's like, I don't want to deal with this fucking wolf every day because I'm going to have to feed him every day. And look at this. And then Fenrir is just like, I want you, you owe me 3 meals a day. I'll protect you, blah, blah, blah. So they do it. The second episode actually makes it make so much more sense because they get to the Adventurers Guild, they get to a Merchants Guild. So it shows you kind of like an economy that's going to be built between he and Fenrir. So he straight up tells Fenrir, I'm not going to be catching all the meat for you. I'll cook for you, but you got to get all your protein. So he's like, deal. what happens is Fenrir, being the legendary wolf that he is, can kill like crazy ass fucking monsters. So anyways, what happens is like pseudo economy is being teased where Fenrir hunts like the crazy monsters, and the parts that they can't eat are actually super valuable. So that's where he's gonna get the gold to survive. But then we don't even get that part because he goes to the Merchants Guild and tries to sell them regular salt and pepper from our world. And he bought it off of the portable grocery for 5 copper. And they're like, we'll give you 17 gold for this. So he immediately, he's feeling guilty, all kind of stuff like that, etc., etc. And then they also bring in like, you know, political parts of it where they enter the new country, but the party warned him. They were like, you know, if you walk into the country with a legendary wolf, everyone's going to be like the dukes, the king, everyone is going to want you because they're going to want Fenrir's power. And he's thinking, this is the last thing I want. I want nothing to do with like heroing or any of this shit. Just like, leave me alone. I just want to cook. And the goal for the show is he just wants to travel the world and experience that world. Okay, that's all he wants to do. So, I mean, I said basically the majority of the plot for like the first 2 episodes, but the comedy is there. It's super wholesome, especially like Fenrir compared to the first episode to the second episode, where the first episode you think he's just gonna be a spoiled brat the entire time, while in the second episode he definitely has more so of a character, and he was just, you know, they were unfamiliar with each other. So now they're becoming more familiar with each other, and there are goals now. So this just is more so just like a show to like chill and watch while you're eating, because I had already decided I need to be eating while I watch this because this shit makes me hungry. It's very similar to Shokugeki no Soma in that way, where they make the food, like he go breaking down the food, how he cooking it, how he's seasoning it, marinating it, all that kind of shit like that. All of that's in there. So personally, I really enjoyed it, and I'm not expecting like, I mean, it's MAPPA, so it's definitely not like an A tier production, but there's gonna be fighting with Fenrir and things like that. I'm not expecting, you know, crazy Sakuga and all those kind of things like that, but you know, might have a little tussle here and there. But I really, really, really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. It's a nice change of pace compared to everything else. Oh,
absolutely, it sounds like it. And I think that, I don't know if it's every season, but it seems like every season we get at least one show that I would just call it like a food show. Yeah. Whatever incarnation.
Yeah, because they had the other, like the Isekai Diner one, where, and I watched a little bit of that one, where it's a Japanese diner in modern day, but on a specific night, the door is like linked to like a medieval world, and so medieval people, like knights and stuff, come into the diner, and they're introduced to like different parts of like Japanese cuisine. And like late night bar food and things like that. So yeah, there's shows like that. Like I think like Maiko, Maiko was like the past season or 2 seasons or so with like food. But yeah, I think I like the twist. I like the little isekai twisty thing, and the isekai part is it's just a device. It's a device. We're in the new world and he's figuring things out. So I'm interested.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. I'm always hoping that one of these shows gets like the A tier production, because I don't think I would have been like watching a Shogeki no Soma just on the premise alone. I think like it needs that
production,
higher end production, to really set it off. So
yeah, cool. I agree. So Revengers. You watched episode 2.
Yeah. So did you watch episode 1?
I watched episode 1. Yeah. Holy shit. That ending was a shocker. Wow.
I figured it would probably go. There were, like, I was watching, so I didn't know anything really, again, more than the preview.
Yeah.
I saw, you know, the colorful cast of characters. I saw the violence. I saw what appeared to be some like anachronistic, you know, stuff to give these characters more spice. Wasn't really sure how the story would get us there. So in the first episode, we meet Ryza kind of right after he finishes murdering some people, but there's no context for it. He's just kind of in hiding, I guess, or waiting to go back home. And then we learn, right, and then we kind of learn very quickly that, oh, well, he's just a loyal retainer who was told to take care of some people who were selling drugs, effectively.
Yeah.
And so that sets our narrative. We're sort of in the period kind of right after Japan's borders were open. You know, samurai are kind of being a little bit replaced. We saw guys with guns, whatever.
Yeah.
So we saw like all that stuff, and then you get introduced to like the main I don't know what to call it, like the main cast, and basically we're told that this is a kind of an odd jobs agency, and I've seen this before. And they take on special requests, and they wind up saving Ryza from getting murdered, and he wakes up, and it's clear now that they need him for some information about a job that they're about to do. He's been wounded, so
yeah.
The idea is that he's not going to get involved. Obviously, we know, like, that's not going to hold. But quickly it spools out that he's been framed. He killed his father-in-law. I guess he knew that he was told that he had betrayed everybody, but now it's clear that did not happen. All he wants to do is kind of get back to his, I don't know if they were married yet, but his fiance. But the problem is that a bunch of corrupt, lords who he was following are still alive, and they want him dead, and so he's got to like make a decision about how he deals with that. Whatever. The first episode, you get the fight in the mansion where you see everyone's, or most of the main cast, cool powers. Neo, who saves Ryza early on, strangles the motherfucker with a kite, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah. What is it? Is it just like a kite with like crystal fragments or like glass fragments?
Yeah, because it was like cutting the throat a little bit.
Yeah, that shit was crazy.
You find out like the other, I should have mentioned like Yuen Usui, who is like the leader of that organization. He kind of has a cover as a goldsmith or gold leaf creator.
But that's also his weapon.
Yes, he murders people by getting a thin sheet of gold leaf over their eyes, nose, and mouth, which forms to their face and they suffocate. But because it's so thin, it then disappears. So it's kind of like a way to kill people beautifully.
Oh.
And then it goes away. And then then we also find out that he is a Christian, a Catholic.
Oh,
and so he has like the tattoo on the back. He does a prayer before they die. I think Soji's the thief,
the one that throws like the little
card.
I don't know what they were. They weren't.
Well, it
really,
went
like,
into somebody's eye, so I was like, "Fuck this!" I hate shit that happens in eyes. And then we get a little preview, but more in the second episode about Teppa, who's like a doctor. Or his cover is that he's a traveling doctor. But wait till the second episode because there's some hot shit. So anyway, all that goes down. They kill the Ryzo sneaks out, kills the official who sent him to go do this shit. The Lord. And then he rushes back to go see his wife because he's kind of, whatever's going to happen.
And he's undoing his blade. Like, he was about to do...
Yeah, he was going to commit suicide. Yeah. That's what he was going to do in shame. But she beat him to it by, like, 15 seconds or 5 seconds because he walks in and she's just on the ground and we see her, pool
of blood, the splatter behind.
Yeah, she's like, my husband is gone. The neck. Yes, my father's gone. Everything's gone. Fuck it. I got to go. So she kills herself like a good samurai wife would when there's great shame. And he gets there at the last minute to see her body covered in blood with the blade that she used to kill herself, like, lodged in her throat. And he just fucking loses it. And that's episode 1. Yes. So from there, I'm like, bro, you got me. It's easy. I was worried that we were going to get, like, stuck, in a, like, oh, it's just a detective agency, but it's set in a... No. These niggas are getting kills every episode, and then I won't go too much into about episode 2.
I enjoyed it. I mean, to be honest, I wanted to see what the fuck the kite was about because in the opening it shows it like having the blade or whatever, or like the blood like splattering on it. So I'm thinking, how the hell did they killing people with a kite? And then they did the close up, and it's just the fragments or whatever the fuck. Like those are some brutal kills. I'm not even gonna lie. So I think my interest with the show is finding out how they all came together in the first place, where they learned to kill, like where did they get those techniques from? How did they learn them? And also to see who is the dude with the bow? Whatever, the fine ass daddy.
Yeah, Teppa.
Fucking brolic ass Bara character, like, inserted into this. Like, they know what they're doing. I'm waiting for the dojins because they're coming for this character alone. Like, it's gonna be fucking crazy. But especially because they put that one scene in the opening with him like drawing the bow and just like everything flex. I'm like,
so that's in episode 2, by the way. It's in episode 2, and it's sick. It's fucking sick. Shit. There's actually a crazy red herring in the second episode that's perfect because, you know, I've talked about this in other series. This is not like a shonen series, this is seinen. But one of the important things to do in action series in general is if you're gonna have an implicit power system rather than an explicit one. So like, you know, this is Nen. This is how Nen works. Like, that's explicit. Implicit would be like, there's just a bunch of really crazy strong people doing things that are not physically possible in our world. Yeah. But you can kind of glean by watching things like, what are the rules? Like, if I cut someone with a blade, do they die, or do people just get knocked out? If I see a really muscular person, can they are they limited by the bounds of regular physics, or are these motherfuckers able to like jump from building to building to building? You know, like, what kind of world are we in? So they do a good job, especially in the second episode, of better establishing what the limits on crazy shit that you can see are. And they get much more into like the creative, because one of the characters, I don't know if it's actually Teppa or if he's just like the person who is getting these items, is like he crafts special weapons. Yeah. Or gear that they can use, and that gear can have crazy capabilities. So when you see him like finally pull the bow out in episode 2, they spent like 3 minutes before setting up a bad guy, but it's actually a red herring because Teppa one-shots him from like the other side of the city. And it's amazing. It's actually, I cannot do it justice how cool it is. And again, this isn't AAA production, but it's pretty good. And so the scene of him like slamming the box with the bow in, where you could kind of like see the dragons that are his face sticking out of the box a little bit, pops open, he pulls it out, he hits a button, it unfolds, you see all the tension wires come through, you see him take a deep breath, pull that shit back, and then his skin turns like, he's like, you know, he's pumping all this blood, his skin turns like pink and red because he's just gripping that shit, and then he does the whole like pull a gigantic bow that looks like a gigantic arrow, looks like a fucking spear, spins it, catches it, does the full draw, and then blows this dude that you thought was gonna be like the antagonist of this part of the episode. He literally pins him to the bottom of the river, like with the arrow. Like, that nigga just dead. Oh man, I gotta go watch that shit. Damn. And they even like, you know, when I look back on it, they even tease you because that character says to the person that he's protecting, who's like the target of the assassination, he's like, my armor, you know, will stop like arrows and bullets. And in my head, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, I have no idea why he said that. Well, the fact that he gets one-shotted with like an arrow the size of a spear less than like 2 minutes later, that's why they fucking did that. To be like, bro, these niggas ain't playing at all. By any means. Yeah, and Neo also has a moment. And I forgot that Neo's actually a dude. Like, I knew that from the like the previews, but I just forgot. And so they even take advantage of that because one of their people they're killing runs a brothel, but he's actually into like men who are physically positioned as women. Traps. Yeah. And Neo baits him and then gets like the combo kill with UN, which is also really cool. But all of that is really sort of like the fun part. The real core of the second episode is explaining Ryzo's reasoning for actually joining them, because he actually wants nothing to do with them. Because that would be the option. That would be the logical next step. Because he has no reason to stay. No, he has and he's you see him in the very beginning of the next episode, like just utterly fucked up. It's clear he's not taking care of himself. Like he contemplates suicide, and then he, like, after a long conversation with Ewan, who tries to recruit him, he's like, it's very clear that his morals are like, why would I take money to kill people? Like, this is totally against everything I believe, but there's an argument that is made to convince him, which I think makes sense, right? And so,
I mean, you were killing people without that shit.
Well,
Earlier.
he's an honorable samurai. He thought he was doing it for, you know, what,
right
his duty
or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you know, there's a he did something already that he thinks is not righteous. Then he went out and got revenge, but that's basically just murder. So Ewan kind of plays with that emotion to get him to get out of his funk, kind of see what's happening in the rest of the world. Like, people, shit ain't sweet for everybody, and then sets up what the conceit of the story is, that people will buy a gold coin, and then if they want revenge, they have to bite it, and so they decide, the group determines whether or not they take on an execution based on how deeply they bite into the gold, to show how serious they are.
Oh, that's why the guy did it. Okay.
Yeah. And it moves on from there. But but again, I like it because they're putting some effort into explaining sort of the motivation. And there's still a bigger mystery, because we learn about the chapel, which is sort of both the real religious organization that's in hiding, because Christianity was banned in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's like underground, but at the same time, it's kind of like the what's the high table in John Wick? Like, they are somehow behind a lot of this.
John Wick, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, but like conceptually, like, they're also running this revenge operation, and so UN reports to them. So there's some lore to uncover, like, who's really behind this, and, like, you know, the fact that Ryza got involved is actually a bad thing for them, because no one is supposed to know about them, and technically he was the one who finished the job, not them. And so Ewan basically tells them that this person, that Ryza's working for them now, even though Ryza never agreed to it. So there's a lot of, like, there's some moving pieces here that are interesting enough story that if you want that, it's there. The executions, the missions are going to be cool. There's some intrigue. There's some decent character development, because we learn about Teppa. We learn about, maybe we'll learn more about Neo and Soji. So I'm into it. Like, they got me. I'm willing to give this more than, like, a casual, you know, 3 episodes. Like, I like it. And I'll be watching more of it.
Cool. What else is there? Okay, so I watched my anticipated Handyman Saitou in Another World, and this shit's funny and also brutal. But just highlights from the first and second episode. The first episode, one of the highlights is, you know, this nigga gets fucked up. Like, he fell down into, like, the lower levels of the dungeon and fucked his foot up. Almost got ate by monsters, all that kind of shit like that. So they regularly drive home the fact that he is not a physically, like, you know, strong adventurer. He's the handyman. And he has levels like everyone else, but he's like level 8 and everyone else is like level 40 plus. So he's got a lot of catching up to do, etc., etc. The highlight of this fucking episode, though, is they have a measurement system in the world. And he, you know, like any isekai protagonist, is like, oh, what is this measurement system based off of? Like, you know, how did it come to fruition, etc., etc. And the mage that forgets everything was like, oh, I do know this. It's based off of the guy who civilized this country's dick. And he's like, what?
What?
And he's like, what? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, let me tell you a story. He's like, basically, the dude who civilized the country and brought everybody together had a massive dick. And he made a whole bunch of babies. And so, like, eventually he was so, like, conceited, and we needed a unit of measurement where he was like, just use my dick as the, like, base measurement thing. So, like, that's what the base measurement is. This guy's dick. And so then he pans and looks at, like, the two girls, like, the fighter girl and the fairy.
You're about 40 dicks tall.
Literally. And so he looks at the girls, and the girls are like, "Yeah, it is."
Oh
based
no,
off of that guy's dick. So I'm immediately. It was out of nowhere. Like it was almost near the end of the episode where I was like, "Where the fuck is?"
What was that anime that starts with the guy like suplexing the princess? From like last year, it was like he was really into. He was like really into raising animals. It was like another isekai. Like he like shows up, and within like the first 5 minutes, you think you're getting one thing, and then like the princess walks over to him, and he gives her like the full split-legged fucking suplex. It was a meme, like, but like it feels like that. It feels like whatever you thought you were about to get, we're doing something else.
Yes. So. They did that, but they also, like, you know, highlighted some of the other casts that, you know, isn't part of their group right now. And then the fucking second episode. So we're going through the second episode, you know, serious. He learned his lesson about specific chests and learning, you know, should I try this chest or should I not try this chest? And, you know, getting more used to how his utilities will help the rest of the party. And they do a lot of backstory stuff on specific characters in the second episode. Until we get the surprise Yuri scene.
Oh.
And when I fucking tell you, they did a slow build to this shit that just immediately went to like 100. It was insane. So there's two girls. There's an elfin girl who... All the elves in the world usually have magic. She was one of the ones that was born without magic. So she went hardcore into learning how to fight. So it's her and a priestess girl. So the elf girl's fighting, and she's getting cuts and stuff like that. And so the elf girl's just like, you know, I just feel really good. It's really nice to have someone here to support me, and da-da-da-da-da. And so it's like, okay, so maybe they have something going on. And then the next scene goes from the priest girl's point of view. And she's just like, yeah, I don't really know that many spells, but I feel like, you know, she's cool and I can be useful to her. And then she's like, actually, I'm fucking with you. I like seeing her get hurt. And it's like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, because when she gets hurt, I get to heal her. Ooh. And so then it's like, what? And so then the elf girl stops fighting. And then she's like, come here, let me heal you. And so she puts her like hands on her face. She cups her face like this. And she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I can get into you easier like this. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? All right. And then this bitch lifts her arm up with a scar right here and starts licking it.
Hey.
And it's like, what are you doing? Hey. And so then the elfin girl is like, why are you doing this? And she's like, my saliva will help make will be a conduit of my magic.
I bet you it will.
And so then it just ends the scene with like her moaning. And I'm like, this is just so...
Wait, so who was moaning here? That's the question.
Both of them from the sound of it. It was the licky sounds and...
Very interesting.
So like, this show, and the thing is, like, Saitou has nothing to do with any of this shit.
Oh, I'm sure.
He doesn't know anything about like that going on with that group in the dungeon. And there are other groups in the dungeon also, like some solo people, a lot of duos. So overall, I'm kind of just like, I'm expecting like one huge like bitch what the fuck moment from now on, because the dick in the first episode and then the surprise Yuri. Aggressive Yuri.
Something for everyone.
Aggressive Yuri. I was like, bitch, this is... It went from 0 to 100. It was like 0, 5, 10, 100. I'm like, just so fast. So, all that being said, I do enjoy the show. Those parts are just really hilarious. But I like how they factor into reasons why he likes this world more. How he helps. How he's resourceful. He learned about like this. Like there's one thing. So at the end of the second episode, they drove home the fact that this nigga's gonna get hurt. So earlier in the episode, they opened the chest. And a metal eating slime fell out. So of course it was a gag scene with like the girl who wears all armor. And, like, you know, she went down to like, you know, just her base clothes, but she wasn't like naked or whatever. Come to find out, they end up opening another chest. That's a teleportation chest that teleports them way deeper into the dungeon than they need to be. And it's only he and the girl. And then up comes an iron golem. Come to find out, the girl is like having a hard time, and she's like, you need to run because like I'm gonna die, but at least you can live. He gets on top of the golem. He ends up keeping some of that slime because he's like, I think it'll become useful, especially with like, there's a lot of metal stuff just like in the dungeon in general. He pours on the golem starts to like disintegrate. Then the golem grabs him, pulls him over here. So the girl sees it. She cuts the golem's arm to like right here. So it goes like that. And then she's like, oh, thank God. And then the nigga just squeezes the shit out of Saitou. And then throws him to the ground. And the next scene you see is his rib cage coming out of his fucking body.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh. Okay. Wow. Okay. But then also, it was a very important plot moment because the girl who wears the armor, the main reason she wears the heavy armor is because she has like a scar on her face. And there are 2 items in the world that can cure the scars. And she has one of them, but it's like a healing elixir. But it needs to be boosted by something. But because of what happened just now, they got into like, you know, death timers and how long can he be dead before the revival spell will work, etc., etc. Things like that. And then also it was like posing the question of, does he go back and forth between the worlds once he dies? Like, is this going to happen? She ends up using like the super rare potion to revive him or heal him like right there and then. Otherwise, he just would have died like all around. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's pleasing. It's definitely not AAA. Definitely not AAA. But the magic, they put the money in the fucking magic. The homeboy did that fire spell. It looked so fucking cool. But that was like in the first episode. So I don't know if we're going to get more of that. The fairy's curse. It was so interesting. The first episode, you think, oh, this is a money-grubbing fairy. Like, oh, okay, yeah, all she cares about money. Second episode, completely humanizes her and goes into detail on how it's not just her trial. It's like her race as a whole is cursed. And how basically they're like moonlight fairies. And they used to live on the moon, but the queen of the moonlight fairies got jealous of how pretty the other moonlight fairies were, cast them down to earth. And basically, if they don't offer her like financial offerings through gold, they shrink. So one of the lines that the other girl says is, when I first met her, she was our size. And so the reason why she's so like, you know, charging for all her healing, this and that, is because she doesn't want to like shrink out of existence. And I'm like, crazy. Damn. Okay. Like that put her into a completely different realm of understanding for me. Because throughout the majority of the thing, they have the old mage who's like, oh, my back whenever he does a spell, blah, blah, blah. And she's always like, I'm charging you. But now it makes that much more sense. So.
Okay. I like it.
I'm really enjoying it so far.
I like it. I like that a lot. I mean, again, not necessarily for me, but I like that there's, again, an attempt to put some depth into things that might otherwise just be like throwaway details or gags. Yeah, there's definitely substance there. And the show goes through like, it does like the mini like skit thing. It's like mini vignettes. It's like this group, Saitou's group, this group, Saitou's group, King, things like that. So it keeps it like moving. Full 24 minutes or?
Yeah, it's a full 24-minute episode. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. And then Bofuri, I watched the first episode of Bofuri season 2. Same old, ridiculous, insane. I don't know why they do this, but they literally just did like almost a full episode of Sakuga. It was just so out of nowhere, just so stupid. Like the mecha suit that like fucking Maple has, they over animate the shit out of it. It's so crazy. The samurai girl got like a new blade where she looks like Erza Scarlet from Fairy Tail, where she has like the minimal like oriental inspired clothing, and like her top is like, you know, she's like in a crop top, like binded chest thing. She got a thing like that with a binded blade, and she got her scene. She looked cool as fuck. And then they're adding skills to the stuff with like the other people from other guilds and that. Just, you know what? Just great. More of the same stuff, and that's all people could ask for. So yeah. Before we season 2, yay! New episode tomorrow.
How about Kaina of the Great Snow Sea?
Okay. A lot of a really good foundation for the first episode, I'd say. Really good foundation. Especially when you take into consideration that the people in the canopy don't believe that there are people down in the snow. Also, there are just a lot of questions, to be honest. Why are there only signs on the canopy as far as like literature or things to read? What happened to the other people in the canopy? But then they also were like world building throughout the entire episode, especially with like, you know, the flies that like repair the holes, more holes showing up. The fly population is decreasing. They basically they don't go down the canopy trees or whatever they call it. And then you also have the juxtaposition of the people from the snow thinking the canopy trees are like the forest of the sage or something like that. So there are two different, like, you know, legends going on in different stratums of Earth. And I was not expecting it to get that bloody, like in the first episode. That when they were gouging niggas like guts and like side areas and shit like that, I'm like, oh, okay, so this isn't going to be we're going on an adventure to find the mystery of the world. There's going to be like politics of like, you know, the last surviving humans, resources, who people are, where are they from, how did we get here, what was the catalyst for the snow. There's just a lot of stuff that they gave us good foreshadowing for, and I really like that. And I also really thought that it was so chilling that one of the first things that is like one of the main conversations between the old people is that they're pitying Kaina because they know that he's going to live in a future that's like more and more bleak and they're about to die. I thought that was so just like, damn, that's kind of, it's not fucked on their part, but you know, it's just, that's kind of sad, like very sad and just, you know, bleak and, you know, fuck. But then,
which I think it's par for the course for Tsutomu Nihei, like, because he's the same guy who did Blame, which is one of my all-time favorites. Knights of Sidonia and others, and he plays with a lot of the same ideas, like remixed. Obviously, nothing is like copied, but like if you watch Blame or read Blame, the concept of like the Dyson sphere that's been built all around the sun, and that it's gotten so big that's kind of
going
like
towards the sun,
right? And they've sort of it's incorporated everything leading out. So like it's the journey of penetrating through all these layers, and you're running into these closeted cultures of people who aren't even necessarily, they're not even recognized as humans anymore, but they all have their own legends about the way things used to be. They're surrounded by technology that they can't use, can't read, can't operate. There's sort of like a hostile entities in the world that are like humongous and teeming and, you know, inhuman. So in Kaina, you get like the insects and everything else. And the fact that it is a double post-apocalyptic set of societies that are going to interact through the main characters, Liliha and Kaina, but also there's just so much, as you said, like it's just very bleak and very depressing and very dreadful. I think maybe that's the word I'm looking for. For all like the hopefulness that like Kaina's character has, or the drama that like Liliha is like bringing to like save her people and everything else, at the core of it, it's just this existential dread about like a world that is just going to kill everybody, and the decay and loss of just everything that's human.
Yeah, even with that line that she said where they were all like, oh, the snow sea is higher, and like, oh, we can get closer to whatever that thing was, and she thought in her head like, oh wow, the snow sea actually brought something good for once. So yeah, very interesting. At this point, like, we didn't get reveals for like anything yet, but interesting first episode. I'm definitely interested in like the resources and why some people are traveling on wooden apparatuses and where they get the iron ships. How are the iron ships staying afloat on the snow? Things like that. Like there's a lot that I think is going to happen, but I'm curious, is this a 12 or 24? I
think it's a 12, but it's
okay.
There's a manga that started. Oh. Well, see, I think that the series was conceived as an anime, and there's just like a manga version that has started running, I think, last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
That should be the same as whatever the anime is. But I agree with everything you brought up, and there was one conversation in the first episode that I still I thought about a lot after it was over. There's between Kaina and the old guy who's teaching him how to read, and that the conversation was about like what is the value of even reading, and they get into it, but like I really liked that because the arguments that he were making were from the point of view of their post-apocalyptic life, but like actually they're the kind of things that like people bring up now, and to have like a very spirited sort of defense of why it's important to know and learn things even when it doesn't seem like it would matter.
Yeah.
You know, I thought was like why I like his work, why I like Nihei's work, why I like Blame, and why I like Knights of Sidonia, because a lot of times they're sort of a Trojan horse for philosophy conversations that seem like they're very basic, but actually they're getting at important core ideas and beliefs that are not discussed enough. And to cap that off, one of the reasons why I liked a lot of the conversations that happened up in the village on top of the canopy with the old people is because it gets to this idea that I don't know if it's a theme of the series or not, but it would be cool if it was, about moral luck, which is when like you have like a society. It's great. We've got thousands of years of history recorded down. We've kind of tested a lot of the stuff that works and the things that don't work. And so when you're born, you just get that handed to you. You get like, thou shalt not kill. Well, that's not just a biblical admonition. It's something that people have kind of played around with and be like, yeah, if you live in a society where anyone can kill anybody, there's a lot of bad shit that happens. So maybe we just shouldn't do that.
Yes.
But one of the problems is that once you get to like a sufficient level of development, people stop teaching how you got to that decision. And so you have a lot of people who say that they believe stuff because they inherited it, but they couldn't defend it if they were pushed on it. If, say, a situation happened where all of a sudden something you thought was like a guarantee now has to be argued about, I don't want to get too deep, but like, the war on terror, or what we're dealing with AI and rights and civil rights and all kinds of things. Like, if you just are morally lucky and you just get born into a society where all that stuff is taken care of, it's crazy how even a very small push can get people who would swear up and down that they believe in something to just throw it away for the sake of convenience, for safety, for, whatever. And so in works like this, where they deal with societies that have lost all of that history, I think it's good to have those conversations from scratch. Why are we or aren't we doing things in a certain way? What is the value of stuff that we take as very basic and take for granted? And actually have people fight both sides of that. Because there is an argument they make in the show about like, well, what's the point of these rituals? What's the point of like reading? Like basic shit. And it's good to have that debate. I wish that kind of debate was had more often. So I was immediately just taken in by all of it, and I have all these questions. But what did you feel about the animation style? Because I know we've talked about with Trigun.
Zero problems. After like the first few seconds, I was just like, okay, CG. But I really like what they're doing with like, how high the what is it? Like the white, and how the sun is like refracting on his like clothing as he's traveling around on like the canopy and things like that. And then the darkness, I think they made it very apparent with like the atmosphere, as far as like when he's inside the canopy, when he's on top of the canopy, when Lily was like in the snow, like it gave I don't know, those scenes like a aesthetic, like it fit where they were, and it came across very well. And I think the CG actually helped that. Just, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a CG connoisseur nor hater. This works. It works. This is the aesthetic. This is what it's gonna be. I don't have a problem with it. Like it looks good to me though.
So I think there's I liked it, and I also like what's happening with Trigun a lot this season, and both series were pre-criticized before they even, you know, were close to release, when it was sort of revealed that actually they're both CGI. And at some point we could have like a broader discussion, I think, about where the state of the art kind of is with CGI in anime. I mean, it's always, at least for the last like 20 years, it's been still been a staple of like the production process. It's just how front and center was it really? With Kaina, I think it represents one tradition, the one that's gotten the most shit, which is the realistic hand animated CGI, where yes, it's got the anime aesthetic. It's not necessarily cel shaded or anything like that, but it's produced and the models are, you know, they are meant to look both realistic but also cartoonish. But what you don't see is what you see in Trigun, which is a different tradition of actually going for cartoon mannerism through 3D animation, which is much more similar, ironically, to traditional hand-drawn animation, because you can do things like squashing and stretching and unrealistic proportions, but they're not meant to they're meant to live organically inside of that world. Like, you know, when you see Vash like mugging dramatically, where his mouth is huge, his eyes get gigantic, you do the sweat drop stuff, you do all of that, versus Kaina, which is more realistic, even though the proportions of everyone in the series are very like stubby and stylized in some way. And I know that some people don't like that. Some people look at that and they see there's like a clunkiness to it that hits you in the uncanny valley space, where it's like, this is not really how a person moves, but also they are abiding the laws of physics. They are, you know, it's realistic. And I think that side of things has gotten a pretty bad rap because of some cheap production. But I love what they are doing in this series with, it just feels fucking cold. It feels empty. It feels that way. It's not just that the empty screen has nothing going on. It evokes a feeling, which is really all any visual art needs to do, even if it's not like to your personal taste. As long as like the feeling that it's evoking and the intent of the, you know, the production are kind of working with each other. Even, you know, what's the right way to say this, but like deliberately under animated stuff that's cheaper can still give me the anime feeling, right? So I think it looks beautiful. I think the music is really good. I think the world building is, you know, even in one episode, like it's very clear. You got these two different societies. There's a lot of shit going on. I don't understand. As you point out, we haven't had a lot of it explained, but I'm so curious. Like, what were these warning signs actually for? What are the trees and where they come from? How do we fuck this up? What is Lilia expecting to find up on the canopy that's gonna solve whatever problem they have? It's not totally clear what any of that.
Why are they calling that Sage's Forest? Things like that.
Exactly. And as you point out, all the technical or technological limitations and availability of stuff on the surface. Like, it seemed like up top they were like burning things and we're kind of living in pre-built structures of some kind, but then down there, that ship, was it welded together? It was like literally firing a catapult. They have snow porpoises or something. They look like laprases. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
You know, like, what the fuck is all this? Where does wildlife come from?
Shit. Yeah.
Do you just die when you fall in the snow? Can you swim? Like, I don't know what the rules really are.
Yeah, because they showed those two guys floating in it, but they didn't like expound on what happened to them afterwards. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, like, if you fell in the snow, like, shit gets like fucking insanely cold and you just fucking freeze. Depending. So
I'm into it.
Where it's at.
I'm into the mystery, and now I want to see how these characters bounce off each other, because, you know, they kind of didn't have a lot to work with as we met him. Yeah. Right. So now he's got somebody to. I'm speaking about like their actors, but like these actors have someone to work against, and so is there chemistry there between Kaina and Lilia, and like does that story carry, or is it more like about the world building and everything else associated with that? I'd be cool if either one of those was like very strong and the other was weak. But if they're both strong, which, you know, Nihei's work typically is when it comes to interpersonal sort of development, this could be a surprising top hit for me of the season, but it depends on how that plays out.
Yeah. So far, I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, same.
How'd you like Buddy Daddies?
I mean, look, I feel like if you didn't know anything about this series, like you didn't see the preview or you didn't even know the name, and someone just started playing the episode 1 to you, you would come away pleasantly surprised, because the gimmick of, like, you know, what makes this show tick, you know, these two you know, work for hire hitmen, yeah. Then sort of like being dragged around by a little girl would feel very fresh, and you wouldn't know what to expect. I won't say unfortunately, but like it is the case that I know what this show was. I knew what it was going in. I saw the preview. I'd seen all the characters, so the surprise of some things was much less than it might have otherwise been. But I do think, like, there's a kind of kinetic feeling that the main characters and a lot of the supporting cast have, that they all kind of bounce against each other in fun ways, where like nobody likes each other, but they all like each other. And like that act is always a crowd pleaser, and it pleased me a lot. I thought it was fun. So I think episode 1 did everything that you could do to establish the premise in the first 5 minutes, and then spooled out some danger, spooled out some uncertainty. I want to know more about like the world of hitmen that they've kind of introduced here, and you know, so I liked it a lot. What did you think about episode 1?
I think that's the best word for it. It's just a lot of fun. Fun, wacky, crazy. They don't give a fuck about catching bodies.
No, that was what I liked that. I liked that people were getting dropped.
Like, yes, niggas are getting dropped like so easily. Even the damn dad, the fact that they killed her dad. Yeah. Like that was the revelation at the end of the episode. But also the fact that you let this 4-year-old like travel all this way by herself. Like in this, like what the, like who are these adults? Like, and what, but also the foreshadowing with Homeboy and the girl that was pregnant that he has, Ray and his hikikomori lifestyle, and only leaving the house for hitman shit. Basically also being a child in a sense for Homeboy to take care of, which is also amazing. But then you get like the complete opposite the moment he gets on the thing or on a mission. He's like, I'm running in, I'm killing these niggas, let's go. But when that nigga shot through the door like this and was just like dot 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 and got them niggas and then busted, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. And the second episode, when she's like there, it's just another level of just craziness. When she plays hide and seek with them niggas and pops out with that shit.
It's like, found you, Papa. Like, there was so much like wackiness in the second episode.
It was like great. Even the part where she like goes to use the bathroom at the Hit's house and the guardsman is like, are you okay? Are you sure you got everything out? Okay, cool. Like, I'm like, wait, you don't even know this little girl? Y'all on full security thing, blah, blah, blah. And the fact, now, wacky, yes, fun, yes, still anime. Because ain't no fucking way Ray is running towards them niggas with an AK and they're all shooting at him.
And he's shooting it fucking sideways, like gangsta style. And then she's like, airplane!
I'm like, ain't no way one of y'all ain't got shot already. It's
and then the other dude's like carrying the guy and like shooting backwards.
Like that,
it's wacky. It's just very wacky.
It is. And so because of that and things like that, that makes me have like an understanding of, okay, so suspend your belief in certain areas, because it's not going to be that realistic. But yeah, they be dropping niggas. Like from the first episode, the amount of niggas that they were dropping to like Homeboy that they were interrogating, and then they like swapped off of them and then came back to them and he was just dead on the ground. They didn't even show them killing him. I'm just like, okay, like this is what we doing. Like this is what we doing. This is what we doing. So I expect shenanigans. Her being who she was in the second episode as a 4-year-old, very on brand. extremely on brand. Also, I loved how he made French toast for both of them, and Ray was eating it the exact same way that she was, even after he was like that. So just little things like that, it just adds to the whole package and just makes it entertaining. And I know some people are calling it the gay spy family, and I don't agree with that.
I don't, because half of that I don't see. I think a better way, if you wanted to take that concept and remix it, you could call it Spy Family for the gays, in the sense that if you want to ship the characters,
well, that's the thing. That's what everyone
they're pretty boys
doing. That's what
but like this is not. That's it. If
like
you
the
have
girls
to,
are simping over Ray, which I get.
Yeah, sure, he's a pretty guy. Yeah,
pretty guy. But as far as like it being that, I'm like, I don't know if it's the Spy Family. Like it could be its own thing. It could be its own thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it on. Spy Family's trying to do something else.
Yeah,
like the concept here is not the interplay
slice of life.
Right, it's not the three main characters. The triangle with the three main characters. Miri is a plot device. That's what she is. Agi's a character.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's not the same thing, but I could see why you want to do that, and just kind of, and it also kind of goes with the general theme. There's a lot of like, I'm just gonna say, I don't mean it in the way most people think, but there's a lot of like daddy animes, right? Like older middle-aged people, or at least adults, forced to like take on responsibility.
Like Yakuza Babysitter.
Yeah, like there's a lot of these now. And I like it because I'm also an older guy, so I'm like, family stuff is
it's nice to have some variety and not have everything be just like, young adult and teenagers.
Yeah. I think Buddy Daddies kind of leans closer to like young adult than some of the other stuff that we have like this season. But I think that's because the marketable aspect of it is less so the kid and more the cool, wacky spy guys who shoot people. I think that's really what would keep you coming back, is that you want to see them do stuff, them uncover things, them move the plot forward. Miri's role is more like,
how is she gonna ruin the mission?
Exactly. Comedy, breaking up tension, or allegorical, like something about child rearing that they have to learn winds up being relevant to their story, in that episode. And I like it. I think it's pleasant. I don't think it quite has the heart of a Spy Family. No. So I'm not going to get that warm and fuzzy feeling. But if I want like action and comedy, this is the one, I think, specifically.
Yeah. So the last thing that I have for this week, oh my god, I don't even know why I'm planning on watching other stuff. Jesus. It's Tomo-chan, which is just a good ride. Just
surprisingly wholesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Surprisingly wholesome. Yeah. Good. It's a good ride. A lot of people really, really love it. But Gundo is my favorite character. She's just like, the one that's pulling all the strings. And yeah, it's a rom-com. It's fun. That's kind of all I have to say about it.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the second episode.
I like that it doesn't feel one-sided by the end of the first episode. I did not watch the second episode. Yeah. But I think it's important that it's not just that Tomo-chan has feelings, but also that we explore what's the guy's name? Yeah, that we explore the fact that like June also is kind of not real. He feels it, but he doesn't articulate it. Yes. That, he would have a problem if she started dating someone else, because
the more that they are, the more into it we get. It's more so of, and this is me just me guessing. I don't really know where the show is gonna go, but I'm thinking more so of he's afraid of taking it to a relationship and fear that he's gonna lose her.
Yeah,
so
sure.
He's just keeping it that way. It could be that, or it could be something completely fucking stupid because it's a rom-com. So yeah, like who knows?
It's either any of that is believable. I just think that when I got through the first half of the first episode, I was like, I like these characters. I see what the tension is going to be in every episode. What the struggle is, and
the supporting cast is really strong. I do like them.
It's one of those series that I'm gonna actually compare it to Spy Family in the sense that like the core gimmick either has to get exhausted quickly or it cannot move forward, because the kind of jokes and the kind of stories that you're going to want to tell inside that comedy rom-com structure start to fall apart if you lean into moving the romance forward. If you move the actual like romance forward, then you lose most of the opportunity to do anything but messy shit, which is, I don't think that's what the calling card of this series is. So it either has to be like, and I don't know if it's based on, is it based on a manga or a light novel or something?
Yeah, manga.
Yeah. So if it's a manga, then my guess is that things are going to progress incredibly slow. And that's not a bad thing, but that's one of those, like, it's part of the design, it's not a bug. And so if people are like, oh man, it's not going fast enough, it's like, you dummy. If it were to move fast enough, this story would be over. There's not actually a lot to it. It's just, at some point, both characters got to be like, I want to date you, and you're hot. And then it's over. So you actually do not want it to move quickly.
Yeah.
So I like what I saw. It's not like for me, but it was, when I got through the first episode, I'm like, you know, for all the ways they could have done this in like crass and stupid, they actually chose to do things smarter and like more interesting. Yes. You know, like with Gundo and like their relationship, and like the subtlety of June, like having to get kind of talked into his own feelings, and then he suddenly notices everything. Like, oh shit, she's got boobs. She's got huge boobs. God damn, you know, like that is actually funny. Yeah. So I'm with it.
Yeah. Okay, what else is there?
Okay, so
that's all the stuff for me.
Yeah, so hopefully you can barrel through the rest of this. Chilling in my 30s after I got fired from the Demon King's army. Watch that one. Same trend. Middle-aged guy has to like reinvent his life. There's some spice to it. The basic concept, the main character was raised by demons, but he has no magic in a world where demons have magic and humans have like aura. So he thought he was a failure of a demon and was basically treated like shit, even though he was the adopted son of the king of the demons. Well, I guess that the king of the demons either retires or dies. His real biological son takes over, says, what the fuck are you doing here? You ain't got no magic. You can't do shit. Get the fuck out. And fires him. So now he's like out there wandering, doesn't really have a job, doesn't have a direction. His life is like, what do I do? I'm in my 30s and I got nothing else. And then he stumbles into a girl getting attacked by a monster. He basically one-shots it with a knife, but he doesn't realize that he's like a fighter. He just thinks he got lucky. Turns out that the girl lives in a village that is beset by problems. It's kind of a very like Japanese death of the countryside kind of story, where it's like everyone who has any promises left to go to the city. So it's basically just this girl's family and a bunch of like older people,
small town
who are living
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
Well, her father is like the local guild master, and he's thinking like, well, this guy saved my daughter, so like it'd be nice if we could get like a young man from their point of view to actually come and like do shit in the village. And since he might be handy, let's like test him out. And it turns out like there's 4 different types of powers that you can have as like a human, and this guy thinks he has nothing, and he's been told that the guild adventurer like sign up process will expose you if you're a demon, since it's something only humans can do. Well, he is able to actually go through with it because he thinks he's a demon this whole time. Like he's like, hey, get the fuck out of here.
Okay.
So it turns out that not only does it not expose him, he's like S tier at every stat. Everything that you could be good at, he is like incredible at, but he doesn't understand what that means. It's not like, I've been saving my power.
As a demon and things.
Like that. And also been raised with like an inferiority complex. He kind of just like lets people walk over him because he's worthless. But now he might actually be a prodigy. He might be the legendary hero because no one is good at everything. Usually you have like piercing power, slashing power, magic power. What you get one. And he's like, nah, you're like S tier at everything. Holy shit. What the fuck is this? And what the endearing part of it is, and I'll get to the not endearing part, but like the endearing part is that everybody in the village is kind of like, well, he's too good to waste his time out here. That it's not, because that's kind of the feeling you have for like any young person with talent. You know, why are you out here when you could be making your life somewhere else? But he's so thankful because they are the first group of people who have kind of treated him like
acknowledged him.
Yeah, like as just like a useful person because he's been treated like shit. He's like, there's no way I would like leave and go and, you know, go to the city and become rich and famous. Like, no, I'm gonna stay out here. I'm gonna help you guys. It's great. And so that's the fun, you know, goofy aspect of the storytelling. But I'll tell you why people are gonna wind up watching this series, even if it's not that great, which is fat tits. Okay.
Oh my god.
Big, shiny, floppy boobs.
Really?
So I mentioned that he rescued this girl, right? And I kind of buried the lead because when he turns around and notices her presence, the first thing he sees are her massive, massive overflowing breasts, literally falling out of her clothes, like. And every time he has a question about should he be doing this, should he be helping these people, she just runs up to him
and the tits.
And then he's looking at him and he's like, well, the right thing to do is stay. And this girl is, you know, she's of age, but barely. That's, you know, that's kind of the implication.
Surprise.
And the guildmaster is like, you know, he is an eligible young man, and he is like S tier and everything.
Wow.
So he's like, so despite being competitive with him, because this guy's like trained his whole life to be an adventurer, and this guy just this other dude, a young man shows up out of nowhere and is like a prodigy. So the first episode is like the father kind of trying to keep testing. Well, yeah, like keep testing him just to like. What's the right way to say it? Just to settle in his own mind that yes, this is really happening. Yes, my pride is destroyed by this person showing up. And then it's like, well, maybe you could get, you know, it'd be nice to have him around. So that's why I think this show is going to do fine, because there's a lot of fan service. And it's not like fan service spread across a harem. It's like one really ditzy hot chick. And that's always good for engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what chilling in my 30s is all about. It's all the stuff I said before, and then big floppy boobs. Big old round gorgeous
big old
breasts.
titties.
Yep, that's what it's there for.
Okay.
So
okay.
You know, that's your thing.
For a specific audience, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yep, it's 100% softcore. Like there's no nudity. It's just fan service. So have at it. What else? What haven't we talked about? What have I talked about? Talk about Tomo-chan. I guess that's it for things that we watched one episode for. There are a couple returners. I think that we both can at least agree we'll probably be watching in some capacity, if not week to week. High Card episode 2 finally kind of got into what the crux of the show is going to be, where we got number one, Finn gets recruited. We learn a lot more about the organization, which is basically posing as like a luxury card dealer. But in fact, everybody working there is a card user. They've been deputized by the king of the 4 nations, which I'm not very curious about what the relation between all of them is, because we got the map.
Yeah, we got a map, yeah.
Yeah, and basically they've been charged by the king to collect all these cards. I presume that's the same old guy in that first episode, the beginning of the first episode, when the cards got spread all over the world. I think that's probably the same dude. We met their handler, so we know that this organization is bigger than just what's in Spada that we met so far, which means more card users potentially, more cool stuff. We got the first mission, where I liked it because they kind of bury the lead a bit of, you know, Finn going to the bar or going to the restaurant and then inadvertently running into the guy who would ultimately be the card user of the week, as like getting bullied by a gang member and then getting rescued, only to have him turn out to be the guy who's robbing banks, and they have to take out with like a creative use of card powers. Didn't really get a better understanding of what the 2 of spades is, but it's interesting that I like that they set up that his ability, like all the
one
abilities,
of the weakest.
It's the weakest because it's a 2, but we see that it's got kind of like a bullet hole or like a bullet scar on the card, so you know damn well that we're setting up for a time when it flips, or there's like, it's actually the strongest because of duh. But
yeah.
But we don't really know how his ability works, other than he was told that it's about shooting in straight lines, and I doubt that it's that simple because nothing so far has been that simple. But even in this episode, they point out that you have to think about ways that you would use your abilities to actually get through a situation. Like, there's no such thing as, like,
just using the ability straight up and being like, we're done here. Yeah.
Right.
You gotta get creative. Yeah.
Yep. So I like what I'm seeing. Music is great. Structure of the show is easy to watch. I want to know more about the other characters. I want to know more about the world that they're in. I'd love to see more like heist stuff if they're going to do that. So I'm good. This is a fine second episode to just introduce more stuff. And I don't need the pace to be super fast, so I like that one. Moving on from that, there was Beasts of Ours. I don't know if you're watching it. I'm watching it. Really good.
Okay.
Really, really, really good. And fun and cute and fucking crazy because somebody got disintegrated by accident in this episode. And this is a world where I like worlds where anything can happen, but like not everything is gonna happen. Like it's not a crazy wacky world, but it's also one where you can have fun and characters can be kind of weird and it doesn't feel out of place. Like what is it, Kumi? I think that's her name. Kuri, whatever.
Yeah, Kumi, yeah.
Yeah, main girl is a ditz and loves to eat and is cute and laughs and is very open with her emotions and is often very confused about what's going on, but reacts like, in a, I won't say like a smart way because she doesn't know a lot, but in a sensible, consistent sort of way. And so she's fun just in scenes like eating, let alone like action scenes. The rest of the cast is just, I love it when I'm watching something and it just feels like every part of this world is developed enough that I could see them in their roles just living in this world. And then if the story is breaking out around it, then that's fine. It has a very classic feel to the kind of storytelling and everything else, but like a lot of fun stuff happens in episode 2. They take out the beast by stabbing it in the eye, which is okay. He stabs something in the eye, but he can extend the spear in like a light attack mode, and so he extends it while the spear's in the thing's eye, so it comes out the other eye on the other side. Instant kill. Shit was fucking sick. It was sick. We also get to see the full transformation scene, like what it actually looks like up front, and it's interesting because clerics go into the body of the paladin, but they don't just like merge in like a what do you call it, a fine mist or some energy. The paladin's body actually splits in like 4 ways, and then the cleric goes into the body. It's very like geometrical and weird. And I want to know what that is and what's going on. We found out much more about the main character's like traumatic past. We got more of the scene where like I guess the girl that he was fighting alongside, or maybe it was another cleric, dies and he freaks the fuck out, and it looks like a lot of people may die because he freaked the fuck out. But we don't know. We also got a better glimpse at who was there, and it looks like the paladin from the very beginning of the first episode was part of whatever squad that was facing off against some real creepy looking shit that did not look like the normal beasts that we've seen so far. They look like some other shit. It's in the intro. It's like the black skinned pyramid head looking things. They actually kind of look like angels. One of them looked like the first angel from Evangelion. Its face. So they were fighting those somewhere in the ice and snow. So that's like, what the fuck was that? What else did we learn this episode? I mean, I just think it was a lot of like good character development. There was a rescue off of like the enemy ship before Kuri gets arrested and then taken away, but it was all part of the Cat Girl's plan because she wanted Jiro and Kumi to like come together, and Jiro was like, I don't want anything to do with this shit. So she actually stole his spear and then deliberately got both of them arrested so that Jiro would have to break into the ship and reunite to get his spear back. Because he was just like, when he woke up, he was like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm getting the fuck out of here. so he's kind of being a little bit manipulated through all of this. But overall, just the vibe is a ton of fun. So I like it. It just feels like those OVAs, some of those classic OVAs from like the late 90s, that, you know, now nobody talks about, but like, you know, there's a lot of production and thought that was put into this, but it's not a movie, you know? It's cool. Love it. And that may be it. Oh, Trigun episode 2. So good. Just really good. Watch it. Why, if you're not watching Trigun, if you didn't watch the original, this is perfect. You don't need to watch anything. Just watch this. It's so good. There's actually a shot that will be in the Sakuga collection. It happens very early in episode 2, but Vash is running away from the townspeople who have decided to take the bounty instead of like just, you know, starving. And they do something that I've talked about with 3D or CGI anime, is that if you're doing something in 3D, your choice, you can either shoot it like an anime or you can shoot it like a movie. But either one of those, you're kind of like, you're trying to cram like a square peg into a round hole. What you're supposed to do is shoot it like it's a CGI show, which means that the camera and the world can do things easily that you cannot do very easily in either one of those cases. So like Vash is like running, you know, on some buildings and jumping around and stuff. And so first the camera's like flat. It's like a flat angle where you're just getting him in profile, ducking and dodging and doing everything else. Then he goes to jump between two buildings and he has to like do a roll to get over to the next building. And the camera actually starts to roll with him and does like a flip with him. But it looks great because it's in slow motion, but it's not zooming anywhere. It's just locked on him. And that's one of the things that you can do so easily in 3D, because an artist doesn't have to figure out what all the proportions are going to be and whatever. Like that's
it just exists already.
Yeah, so now you can like unlock the power of doing something in a CGI way. And then if you also are investing in facial animations and stretching and squashing and the cartoon aspect of what you're looking at, then you get this effect that is very unique and feels very cool, and that you're not gonna see this anywhere else. Whereas when you are just mimicking what a normal drawn anime is gonna look like, you're kind of wasting a lot of the opportunity of having it be 3D. And it's like that all over the episode. And it has all the heart that Trigun always had. And the philosophy. And Vash is just such a charismatic and relatable character that even in this new incarnation and this new visualization, he comes across as someone you want to watch. Just like he was in the original anime, just like he is in the manga. So it all is translating great. It's a beautiful series to watch, to be frank. And so I just think it's exceptional, and more people should be talking about it.
Cool.
But that's it.
Okay. Any news?
I mean, nothing anime related other than the trailer for Gretzko season 5, which you know that's
I can't watch that because I have no idea what's going on. Also, there was announcement they confirmed Made in Abyss is going forward with the next project. So they didn't give us a time. They just put out a trailer like 3 days ago. So it's not like any animation. It's like the recap and then like the confirmation where it's only in Japanese. So like, I don't know. I just, Kadokawa anime just gets recommended to me on YouTube and I randomly found it today. But yeah, so whatever the fuck is it next, they're working on it.
So I think I'm up to date, and if I am up to date, they have kind of sort of wrapping up the next part of the story now in the manga. But I don't know if it's enough. I don't know.
For a season?
Maybe I don't know. I gotta go back and reread it because I took a break and then I caught up like 2 months ago. And there's like, anyway, I don't want to get into it, but okay, I'm interested to know what they're gonna do or what the schedule could be. Like, we're talking about some shit that'll be out in 2 years.
Yeah, I'm expecting like 2 years. I'm not expecting anything within the next year. Yeah. It's just nice to know that it's coming as opposed to, and you know what, they might do the same thing that they did for the first season. They might do like compilation movies for the Golden City, and then, or just like what you said, if you don't think it's enough for a season, they might do what they did for Bondru.
Oh yeah, actually, that would be really good.
No, real okay.
That would be really, really, really good. But yeah, that's really all I'm aware of that might be remotely interesting. I don't have much in the way of recommendations, but the one thing I will kind of remind folks, it's something that we had talked about in the past, but the Low Rank Soldier manhwa recently came back from a break, and it's even better than it was. Oh man, I thought they peaked at the end of like, or at least where it stopped, because it didn't really officially do like season 1, season 2 thing, but it kind of stopped in a weird place where it was like in the middle of a penultimate confrontation that still probably had like 8 or 9 chapters worth of story left, and then it went away. And then so it just recently finished that part after coming back, and I'm like, bro, this shit, there's a feeling you get where you go through a panel and you're like, oh, I'm about to feel something now because there's some hot shit, and right away they got me, and I'm like, yeah, the power scaling is excellent in this series. There's always something like a cool challenge that they've got to overcome, and like a great scene, characters, like actually having feats, pulling shit off. Like the way they take advantage of the format is fantastic, because you can follow like a movement in a battle straight down the page, one flew within your eyes, following it the whole way. Like it's just such a tight series. Like it's just, they know what they're doing and they execute. So that's not really a recommendation. It's just like I picked that back up again, read about like 10 chapters or so, very, very pleased. Yeah, also wanting player to like not like I love the part that we're in. I just don't. There's some characters that I like that I know have to get washed.
Oh,
and I don't want them to get washed because they are.
But you see it coming.
But yeah, you got to, like, this is it's like basic storytelling shit. Like it has to happen, but like I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. I want the badassery to have like a good payoff for them. So that means I'm invested. That's a good thing. Investment. Yeah.
I need to catch up. I need to figure out how far behind I am. I feel like I'm only like a 5 or so chapters.
Yeah, you're probably not that far back. If you haven't gotten to the sort of end of the what's his name? The knight. What's the oh, am I forgetting his name now?
Who, Ryan?
Like the mentor figure.
Rand or Jed or whatever the fuck.
Whatever the
number 2?
No, the number 1. If you haven't gotten to like the reveal out of that dragon fight, then you have like.
Oh yeah, the guy where like it took his arm off, and then he was like the arm was like a seal actually. Yeah. Or like a regulator or some shit like that.
So you probably have like 6 or 7 chapters.
Okay.
But the stuff with the number 2 is like making me have feelings, because like I love it when a character you're like, okay, I kind of know what your role is. Like display what they really can do, and you just want it to work. It's kind of like what's happened in Jujutsu Kaisen over the last arc or so. Like there's a bunch of moments for some of the supporting cast where you want them to get the W, but from where the story's got to go that like they're not going to get it, or they're not going to get it in the way that you want them to get it. It's the same old thing here. Okay. Like anyone who is rooting for like future Trunks to like whoop Cell's ass, like that couldn't happen. You know what I mean? Like that's not what this series is about. That's not where the story's going. So that cannot happen. But you still want it to happen anyway. It's kind of the same deal here.
Okay. My recommendation is for the BL fans. Jinx is the name of it. It is from the creator of BJ Alex. and it's not blowjob Alex. Just to be
sure,
it's not
sure.
blowjob Alex. But it's from the same creator, and it is just as spicy. Like out the gate, just very much so. Just it's there. There's only like 12 chapters out, but bitch, it's good. It's good. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. And yeah, you know, size difference, MMA fighter, physical therapist. Just yeah. It's something. It's something. So you know, if you want to give it more time, for like the first season, because I'm pretty positive it's gonna have multiple seasons. So if you want to give it time for like the first season to end, you'll probably need to wait until like next like November, or this upcoming like November, December. But yeah, when you find out the meaning of Jinx, I mean, you'll find out the meaning of Jinx.
So maybe this is like a gift for all the gay cells who are worried about how am I going to ship Andrew Tate, you know, in my personal.
Oh my god!
Like in my
he
personal,
will not besmirch
my personal fan
territory.
fiction. You know, this might be your way in. No, I'm joking. Well, speaking of eating ass.
Oh my god!
This is not anime related, but I know this is a topic of discussion in the Black community. This MLK statue, this lewd MLK statue.
Oh my god, the penis.
Now listen, all right.
Or the one where it looks like it's.
So I am a resident of the fine city of Boston, and like many other people. Like many other people on MLK Day, I took a little trip down to Boston Common to check out this ass-eating statue for myself. And I was ready to laugh along with everybody else and, you know, talk about it looks like it's holding a giant dong from one angle. Or you can sort of see somebody's head being held down the other one. Just someone tooting it up. You know, I was right there with the rest of the community ready to get my laughs on. But having seen it in person, having walked around the statue, having seen it from multiple angles, having seen it in both daylight and in the night, what I gotta say is the following. From one angle, it absolutely looks like somebody giving a nice old rim job. Okay, a good one too. Okay. They're in there. All right. Okay. But from 3/4 of the other angles, so, you know, if you're looking at it from the other sides, it really does actually look like what it's supposed to, which is the photograph of Martin hugging Coretta Scott King. Yeah. And it's actually quite good. And at night, it looks fucking fantastic. It's a great statue from those other 3 angles. Okay, but it will always look like either 2 hands holding up a giant dick, or somebody eating ass from that other quarter. You know, that you could look at it from. That's just a fact. Now I've talked about this with other niggas, okay? And I know I'm the outlier. People want to laugh at it. People want to complain. Why didn't they show the picture first? Blah, blah, blah. All I'm going to say is this. I love that there's a gigantic statue to a hallowed civil rights leader and his wife in public display in a very racist city, because Boston's a racist-ass city. Not more racist than anywhere else, but it is still a racist-ass city, okay? I like that. I also think that we need more statuary dedicated to lewd acts. I wish this statue was just all about eating ass. I really do. I think that would be cool. I think that would be awesome that there would be statues like that and nobody gave a fuck, you know, one way or the other. So I'm in favor on both sides of this. I like doing stuff for the people. I also like doing stuff for the lewd motherfuckers who just want gross ass shit to laugh at. So I think this actually accomplishes both goals. And I couldn't be happier. I think this is a fantastic statue. Either way, no matter how you want to look at it. So I'm going to be a defender of whatever the fuck this is. Also, it's a black artist. And personal note, if you actually go up to the statue, they have the names of various prominent people who were both responsible for getting the statue done, but also engaged in civil rights work in the city. And one of the people whose name's down there is Melvin King, who's actually my mentor. So I didn't know that but when I got there, I was like, oh shit, Mel King's in here. All right, yeah, I can get behind all this shit. So I have a personal connection to it. There's another name on there, Felix Arroyo, who I've known, but I'm not like personally friends with or acquainted with. But my family knows this guy. But like all together, if you want to get your laughs off, go get your laughs off. It's fine. It definitely does look like somebody's got their head up perennium, sniffing something stank. If that's what they're into, it looks like that from an angle. But the other 3/4, they good. So you know, it is what it is.
Okay, easy enough.
Yep.
All right. So that is all for this one. If you haven't already, follow us on anime_savants on Twitter. Otherwise, you can follow us everywhere else or watch us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or your podcast platform of choice.
Yep. And you can always reach out to me on Twitter at Neural Handshake, all one word. I do respond to positivity these days. No negativity. No long screeds. No complaints that aren't things that we could use to help the podcast. But yeah, hit me up.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Peace out.